with the latest Iraqi dinar news. And as always, pre- and post-RV information. Live Q&A to follow.
All right.
Shannon, you're up, girl.
All right. If you guys are following along, we'll go ahead. We'll jump right into it. And there's pretty much one article out there that it goes over everything and just kind of reiterates what's been going on and what we've been talking about. I'll go ahead and start reading. It's called New Banknotes to be Introduced in September. And if you're following along, I'll start reading. From the Kurdish Globe, views differ on financial and socioeconomic impacts despite fears of a negative economic impact. The CBI will remove the 3 zeros from the Iraqi dinar notes and print new banknotes in 2013. The Central Bank of Iraq has agreed with the Economic Committee of the Iraqi Parliament to introduce the new banknotes in September of 2012, which will be used in parallel with the current banknotes for a year. The CBI will completely withdraw the old banknotes by September of 2013. Abdul Hussein Ebdan, Economic Committee Member of Parliament in Baghdad, stated in a press conference that there is an initial agreement between Parliament and the Central Bank to start the process of removing the 3 zeros in September, and it will take a year to complete. The new banknotes will be printed in Arabic, English, and Kurdish. The CBI will introduce 3 new banknotes, the 50 dinars, 100 dinars, and 200 dinars. For smaller transactions, the CBI will also issue the 1 dinar and the 2 dinar coins, which Iraq currently does not use. Aptan says the grant agreement is to ensure that during the 1-year process, the old banknotes are traded in the market and replaced by the new ones. The CBI expects this move to positively impact the country's economy. However, some say the negative consequence will be more serious. The Security Commission says deleting the zeros will have a negative impact on financial trade in the stock market. Other opponents of the move argue it would pave the way for money laundering and want the government to reconsider its decision. Supporters of the idea believe the introduction of the new banknotes will help reduce inflation, strengthen the Iraqi dinar in the international market, facilitate trade with international banks and other financial institutions, as well as reduce the social gap between the classes. The process of removing the zeros from the currency will contribute to dealing better with inflation, facilitate economic cooperation with international banks, and reduce the differences in standards of living in society. Mohammed Khalil, another member of Iraqi Parliament and official spokesperson of the Economic Committee, says an agreement has been reached about the mechanisms of introducing the new banknotes after a series of meetings and discussions with the CBI, with the Governor Shabibi. According to the agreements, the new bill will be printed by a European company and introduced to the market gradually and in a well-planned schedule to ensure that it will not result in shocks and will not have a negative impact on the market, explains Khalil. He added that the exchange rate between the new banknotes and the old ones would be 1 is equal to 1,000. The objective behind the move is to appreciate the value of the Iraqi dinar against the U.S. dollar, which would in turn increase the balance of the dinar, and there would be sufficient reserves of that currency, explained Khalil. Additionally, the economy of Iraq would grow and oil sales would also increase. He added that Iraq had a reserve of $60 billion in the CBI. And the CBI previously stated that it would consult with Parliament and the representatives to see whether there would be a need for a law to be passed for this shift. The committee announced on February 19th it was introducing new legislation for that purpose and would also address the inflation issue in the country. The introduction of new banknotes and withdrawing the current ones from the market is gradually expected to reduce and control the number of dinars in circulation and would also help facilitate payment systems and control the banking transactions in the country. Okay. Again, it all just points out that everything that we've been saying, it's getting closer. So, I mean, in September, they're saying that's when they were going to release those notes. Importantly, they're going to release that single, and we all know, if we've all been paying attention, when they release that single dinar coin, they've got to put a value to it. They can't release it and say, okay, go get 1,000 of these, because right now 1,000 equals, right now 1,000 dinars gets you a loaf of bread, because it's equal to roughly $1. So, if you're going to go out and get this loaf of bread, and they're going to release these single dinars coins and not put a new value to it, they're saying, go get 1,000 coins now to buy your loaf of bread. That's not happening. They have to put a value to it. And it says, one is going to be equal to 1,000. So it sounds like that one single dinar coin is going to be equal to 1,000, which is going to be equal to $1, which gets you that loaf of bread. So minimum of $1. It's got to be a minimum at 1,000 to 1. 1 to 1,000 is going to be, it's how it's going to be equal. So I'm liking that. There's so much, it's coming out. They're ready. They're releasing it. They're telling you what they're going to release. They're telling you what it's going to be, roughly what it's going to be equal to as far as, in their country. Go ahead, Mike. You sound like you want to say something there, bud.
Yeah, this should be no shock to anybody on this call, because we read the same article a week ago. Well, not the same article. A similar article a week ago when we talked about that Shabibi went over to Parliament, and he talked to the member of Parliament. This is the same exact thing he said 2 weeks ago. The same exact. This is another newspaper article talking to people out on the street and just saying, hey, look, this is what the guy from the Parliament said is going to happen. They are getting ready to release those coins. They're getting ready to release the new denoms. They have a target date of September. They can do it any time before now and September. They do need to have some laws that are passed that they've talked about. Those can be passed at any particular point in time. They're worried about the stock exchange and how that's going to be affected, as they should from that standpoint. But shouldn't be a shaker and a roller. Nobody should be surprised that they're hearing this article. They're going to hear it 64 ways from Sunday from now until they actually release those coins. They're going to be educating their people. Every day they're going to be out there telling the people that these coins are coming and this is what they're going to be. Don't be afraid of them. That's what it's there for. What does it mean to us in the investment? It means that we're excited. They're actually talking about the new money. Months ago, we speculated that it was there. We have a very good idea that they've got this money printed and ready to go at any point in time they want it to be done. So we've read articles that have told us that in some instances. They're depleting the bills out on the street. We talk about, the counterfeit articles. And I was talking to Debbie the other day, and we were talking about this. And I said, you know what? You know why they're counterfeiting the 10,000s and not the 25,000s? Is because a year ago, Shabibi started pulling those off the streets. He started limiting the supply on those. So they're not readily available, and the ones that are readily available are pretty ratted up because he knows what the supply of those are out there. So it makes sense that they're trying to counterfeit the 10,000 notes and not the 25,000 notes, and it just kind of the light bulb went off because I use a little common sense about it all. And I'm like, yeah, we put the articles together. It says this is what they're doing. And guess what? That makes sense to me, why they're doing that. And this should make sense to everybody out there that they're going to take a slow approach to this. They're not going to tell us the date and time they're going to release the money or the new coins. That will happen. They may release it slowly. We may hear articles that they try it in a town out west and release some of the smaller denoms, but not everything, to get people used to it, to see what the reaction is going to be, and then eventually they'll release it all. But before they release those coins, they have to add value to the dollars, like you said, Shannon. It needs to. It just makes no common sense to put paper out there that's worth more than it is. The paper's worth more than it is in purchasing power. So you just wouldn't do that. I would hoard the coins. It would freeze up your economy. So There should be very few surprises about this particular article, because we talked about it last week, almost 4 days ago on Sunday, when we actually had the interview where the guy from the House Finance Committee said the same exact things.
Well, Mike, the most counterfeited bill on the planet is the $20 bill from the United States. It's not the $100 bill, which is obviously worth more. It's the $20 bill, which there's more of. And so kind of the same thought process could go with those 10,000 dinar notes.
Yeah, think about it, Scott. I mean, they were drawing those off the street. He was pulling those down, and it just kind of went off like a light bulb to me. Yeah, there's a low supply of that. Why would I waste my time counterfeiting that when I see more of the 10,000s out there, because everybody's using those now more so than anything else? As they start to draw those down, what are they going to do? That's why I think they're so confident that they can get their hands around the counterfeiting problem.
Yeah, well, additionally, like when we go to the store and we pay, say you go to the gas station, you buy a soda and a tank of gas. If you hand them a $100 bill, they run that little pen over it and they hold it up to the light and they make sure that it's good. With 20s, you throw those in and they don't even check them. They're just like, blip, okay, next, done. We see a bunch of those.
Yeah.
And so it could be similar in Iraq, that the larger notes are under more scrutiny and the smaller notes are under less scrutiny.
Yep, makes sense to me. What else you got for us, Shannon?
All right. Well, that's it. There's one more short, little, teeny tiny thing that basically 2 sentences that sums up that last article, really. It's entitled, "The Iraq to Revalue the Dinar and Introduce New Notes in September 2012. So if you're following along, click on that. Okay. And it just reiterates about, according to the article and the Kurdish Globe, about on the 25th, February 25th, the CBI has agreed with the Economic Committee of Iraqi Parliament to introduce the new banknotes in 2012 and withdraw the old banknotes within a year. And the new notes will be denominated in dinars, and they will have 3 zeros removed to revalue them 1 to 1,000, compared to the existing notes. The new 50s, 100s, and 20s will be printed in Europe and feature Arabic, English, and Kurdish text. So if you guys want the short, sweet, summed-up version of it, there it is. Those 2 lines are the important things.
Yeah, and basically it hasn't changed, right? I mean, the CBI knows exactly what they're doing. Nothing's changed. We haven't heard anything out of them, and I doubt we'll hear much more out of them other than the education of their people and letting them know that there's going to be new currency. Be aware that the new currency is going to be there, and get that out there till they feel comfortable, that everybody's going to feel comfortable, because, again, the biggest problem they have when that new currency comes out is that the street dealers will cheat the people out of their dinars and say these are worthless. Give them take dollar bills and take their dinar from them and rip them off. And, they want to make sure that the people are educated enough when they go there they can say, no, these dinars are valuable and we want to keep them.
Oh, I'm just so excited, really. I just really need them to hurry up and revalue. It will be fabulous, and I'll be
they're ready. They're ready.
Yeah, I mean, they are ready. It's the patience factor now, It's like, okay, because we have come this far and we've seen some things come through, it's almost the patience factor. You have to tell yourself, okay, these are the good things that have been done on this side of the column, and these are a couple of things that need to be done over here. Keep my head straight, from it all, because we get excited, too, ourselves, even reading the news. We get excited about it and go, we know we're closer than we've been in a long time. We know there are some things that need to be done. And then there's those things that we don't know need to be done. We have guessed and surmised what we know and what we can tell from the articles, but there's probably a couple things that we don't know that need to get done too. Things that they won't tell people, that are telltale signs out there that are getting done beneath the scenes to make this all happen. And it's all moving forward. And we're getting there, one step at a time.
Oh, I know.
Valentine's Day.
No, that would be too long.
Open that rubber room up. I think we got room for one more.
Honestly, Valentine's Day, yeah, we should, the day at RVs, that'll be the new love day.
And remember where we've been from this, from the budget trying to get passed and everything going, and now they've got their budget passed. I mean, what the funny part is that they've passed their budget, and we've heard all that news. Man, I could even find a blip of it in any of the U.S. papers. Iraqi passes its first budget or whatever, giving money to the people. Very, very quiet across the world of what they're doing. I mean, had we not been looking in the Iraqi news, we probably would have never known that happened from the world news that's out there. So, when you start to see that stuff, that's good things. You don't want a whole lot of people clamoring and saying, yeah, we're getting steps done, we're moving. We'd really like to see them at the end of this come out and say, here we are, we're ready to go. And, everybody goes, wow, how did that happen?
No
I
fanfare.
know. And when we peruse the Iraqi newspapers, I noticed that around the time our budget gets talked about, it's always in their newspaper.
Right, exactly. Yeah, kind of turnabout is fair play there.
It certainly is. Oh, the U.S. budget and I laugh.
So true.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
So true.
So what is going on over there, Mike?
Well, truly, outside of everybody clamoring in the community over somebody calling the RV, there really isn't a whole lot going on over there other than what has been going on the last few weeks in the Parliament. They're still bickering over Hashimi and what needs to happen with him. They're still bickering over the national conference or the meeting that they need to have. Some people want to put it off until after the Arab conference. Some people want to get it done. Deals are still being made. They're still talking from that standpoint. And meanwhile, Kuwait is kind of sneaking up as the next thing that's, trying to get knocked off that list to get done. Kuwait is really trying to help them get through the Chapter 7 and get themselves moving from that standpoint. And, Maliki's still holding out on the security minister. He's afraid that there's going to be a coup if he puts somebody in there that wants to have the power in Iraq. The true power in Iraq is going to be the security minister, because they're going to have the ability to take the army, to be in control of the army. And what did Saddam Hussein use when he was in control? The army in these countries are the biggest things, and when they weren't allowed to have one, and they're putting it back together, everybody's afraid, whether it be culturally, whether there be fears or not, that this army position can be used very negatively to run a coup, put somebody out of power, get somebody out of there. So, we're starting to hear some inklings of that going on from that standpoint. But underneath the scenes, they're still, plugging along. They're still knocking some things off the list. They're still trying to use the Constitution to implement herbal to get everything going and to move that along the way. And then meanwhile, we have a feel-good article at the end to let us know about some of the infrastructure that's going on there too. So, it's not outstanding, like we had a week ago when the Finance Committee and the budget was passed and all that news is great. Well, we're kind of back into the same old as we go through, and nothing really caught my eye that was really huge from that standpoint. So let's go ahead and start with the first article about Kuwait. Deb.
Zabari?
Yeah.
Okay. Zabari confirms the government's willingness to address all outstanding issues with Kuwait. Foreign Minister Zabari, Iraq's desire to strengthen relations with Kuwait on the basis of common interest and mutual respect, also stressed the government's willingness to address all outstanding issues between the two countries in accordance with international legitimacy resolution. He participated with a number of politicians, officials, and members of the diplomatic corps and foreign in the celebration of the Embassy of the State of Kuwait anniversary of 51 for the independence of the 24th anniversary of liberation from the aggression of the former regime. He gave a speech at the ceremony in which he congratulated the Prince of the People and government of Kuwait on the occasion. He said the Prime Minister will visit Kuwait soon to discuss all issues in order to address them and for the full withdrawal of Iraq from the provisions of Chapter 7.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
There's our woohoo article.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, Kuwait is to me, the more I see, the more willingness they had. Where do we go? If we compare to what we saw 4 months ago, where they were biting in each other and the articles were coming out, well, we're never going to get this done, the port of Mubarak's never going to get done. All this stuff is not getting done. Well, what's happening is it's all getting done. It's all moving forward. And as the pressure mounts because the budget is passed, Kuwait is that I think is probably one of the keys that's next to be there. They would really, the way I'd like to see it is that they have their national meeting, they get their governmental issues together, the Kuwait then pulls them out of Chapter 7, they come out and announce their government, and then soon thereafter or before that, Shabibi says, okay, we need to play in this international community and move ourselves out and get ourselves in this arena, and let's go ahead and RV that currency at that point in time. So I think that when Maliki goes there in a week or two before the Arab, I think this is the crown jewel for the Arab conference, if everything goes well, to come back and say Kuwait has put us out of Chapter 7. Look at us. We're dealing really well with the rest of our Arab neighbors, and what a way to come to the meeting with, some deals signed and ready to go. And from a political standpoint, a common sense standpoint, that's what it sounds like they're really doing, is really lining up their ducks to get themselves moving in that direction. Quack, quack.
Quack, quack.
Let's talk about Moot Log.
Okay. Moot Log demanding lifting of his case from the agenda of the national meeting in order to make it. Asked the Deputy Prime Minister, Moot Log, his list of his case to raise the agenda of the upcoming national meeting. Moot Log said, I call upon my brothers in the Iraqi list. Raising the issues of the agenda of the National Congress is expected in order to make it successful, and I call upon the patriotic forces to unite and put aside their differences and take common positions at large forces of terror and put the interests of Iraq and the Iraqi people above all things in consideration. He stressed the importance of the participation of all political forces in the security file to stand firm against terrorism and not to give opportunity to those who want to harm Iraq and its people. Great. Do you want to read on?
No. I mean, he's basically, he has a plea. He has his case. Him and Hashimi are out there. They've got their case. This is the key point that's kind of these are the bargaining chips that are out there on the table. He's part of that bargaining chip. So he's gone to the newspapers to say, hey, this is about the Arab people. Let's take our petty differences that we have amongst ourselves and get that outside of the political process. We can come to some sort of an agreement, whatever that is, but let's not let this be what makes the success of the national meeting or not. And Maliki says, these are the guys that are going to have the security post. These will be some of the more powerful people. And one of the reasons I think they wanted to give it to them is because they have Sadr in their camp, and Sadr can really control a lot of these groups that are out there, was the whole idea, this whole plan before they went ahead and did it. But apparently Mr. Maliki doesn't feel the same way that he did years ago when they decided this was the right way to go. So this is the bargaining chip that they're trying to use for this national conference. And really they want to take it off the table. And eventually they will figure out what they're going to do. These guys will be probably tried someplace outside of Baghdad through the political process, according to their constitution. There will be a fair trial, and more than likely they probably will be set free, and you'll have some of these other guys that were involved, some of the bodyguards or somebody else will take the fall for whatever went down in this whole political process to make this go. But again, it's the years of distrust that bring them to this. Although these sound like very simple things for us to go ahead and get taken care of, with the years of distrust that they've had with Saddam Hussein and the people in charge and the people that were in Baghdad, they just don't trust a lot of what's going on, and that's the bottom line. It's very difficult to build trust when you haven't implemented all the agreements that you've settled on. So you can understand, where they're at from the standpoint and why they've gotten to themselves to this point. And the person who's been very quiet, which we haven't heard a lot from, and this happens every now and then, is Mr. Talabani, and I think he's working behind the scenes to really get this thing moving forward. And I think we will see a successful constitutional convention, and I think everything will be implemented, and there may be a few changes. And I think that, everybody will go kicking and screaming, or eventually someone along the line will be replaced, and they'll get the people in there that are going to move this forward, because it's getting important for them to move themselves forward. Cannot go to an Arab conference bickering and not looking like a country that's together. So they really have put the pressure on themselves to come down and get themselves through that. They could put a face on it. They've done it before, doing these things when Maliki came to the United States to get out. Everything was grand. He left early. Everybody wasn't happy with everything that had gone on here. But he left a little early, and they put a face on it, and they moved forward. And now that, that they've got their budgets, they've got things going on over there, things are moving forward. So they will move forward. They will get through it. It's just the political hankering that we're going to hear about in the newspaper over the next few days. And it probably will be played out in the paper, because everybody wants to get their case out there. So you're going to hear good and bad about this going in. And there's going to be a lot of wanting to change this meeting. There's going to be a lot of wanting to postpone it and all that kind of good stuff till after the Arab conference and all that. All these tactics to delay is what politicians use when they, aren't quite getting their way. So let's go ahead and delay it. But I think in the end, those will all be worked out, and we'll see that happen here shortly, because it's just the next chain. That's the next thing in the progression that needs to happen. As the budget took its sweet time, they didn't vote, they voted, they didn't vote, and all of a sudden they got in there and voted. Didn't hear any articles about people walking out during that budget meeting, and we've heard numbers of 220-some, which is almost the full parliament that they had there. So there wasn't a consensus that this was happening sleight of hand. Everybody was there to go ahead and do that. So eventually they will move themselves forward from that standpoint. So all good.
Mike, excuse me, Mike. I was reading some articles about the summit, which is, they canceled it last year, and so, you keep expecting them to cancel it, and it's just not happening. There were so many articles that were good the last couple of days. Maliki came out and called it a significant milestone in the history of Iraq. All the preparations are completed, and all will attend and will be held on time. What about that?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's running to the paper. Everybody wants to get their story out there. So, things are moving forward. I mean, as shaky as things have been, as much as we've looked at Maliki to be one of those things that, he seems to be driving this forward because he's got no other choice. So we've read, too, that all the meetings that they've been having have been very successful in moving forward. He certainly wants it to proceed because he feels that he has an advantage to have this going forward. So we will see what that all entails.
Yep. What's next, Mikey?